sounds good. Right. So yeah, I'm Kostas Cheliotis. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the National Technical University of Athens, and I'm currently working on the CYBERCARTO research project with Professor Kavros and Eleni and Margarita and a lot of other people. My particular interest has been on augmented reality in geospatial visualization as a let's say quite novel method, visualization method, interaction method, technical method, and how it has been adopted and how it has been used within the mapping and cartography and the general geospatial visualization topic. So in this talk, I want to go a bit more into detail on a few things that we have looked into as part of the project, specifically looking how exactly augmented reality has been used within mapping in general. And probably some definitions. Yeah, when I say augmented reality, I generally mean mobile augmented reality, whatever that encompasses. And just to give a bit of a quick overview, there's been a big technological evolution over the past 25 years in augmented reality. This was the mobile on the left, where the mobile augmented reality approaches. A huge backpack with wires hanging out and a headset and an antenna at the top. But it was the only way to basically move something out of the lab and have it into the world. And then 10, 15 years later, we got the first smartphone and then dedicated headsets. So we've been through a lot, and we are now at a point where, as I'm sure it's been made clear from the previous speakers, it's kind of augmented reality. It's kind of standard. Like you have your web design and you have your augmented reality. It's kind of also another approach. It's another tool. It's there. It's not something special on its own. So we in the CYBERCARTO project, we wanted to go a bit more into depth and see, okay, so what's the impact, what's the use, how has augmented reality been used? And I'm going to present quickly two main outputs from our research project. The first one was we wanted to look at augmented reality applications used in spatial visualization specifically, and see what the spatial characteristics of the applications were. We have also a lot of different applications. All of them are kind of under the same umbrella. Everything is mobile augmented reality. But there are a lot of different approaches, a lot of different uses, a lot of different ideas that are usually in clash with one another, even though all of them are still considered to be augmented reality. So, and because AR is an inherently spatial tool, we went ahead and tried to classify everything according to its spatial characteristics. So as a starting point, we've identified four characteristics. The first is the visualization size. The second is the visualization scale, and I'll go into detail afterwards. The third is whether in the augmented reality application, the physical environment is also acknowledged or not. And the fourth, which methodology is being used to sort of align the virtual view with the real world view. Starting with the visualization size, that's probably the easiest to, where's my cursor? Yeah. Probably the easiest to explain. It has to do with how big of an area of a volume the visualization takes up. So you can have small visualizations, which take place on the desktop. You could view the whole thing by standing still. And wrong button. So yeah, you can have, come on, room size or mid-size visualizations that sort of take up some room around the user, and the user needs to rotate their device, whatever the device may be, to view the whole visualization. And finally, you have large visualizations, which are all everywhere around the user. The user usually needs to move in space as well to view the whole thing. So going with human-centric measures, that's sort of a very broad and all-encompassing visualization size range. And there's a lot of different applications for each of them. So urban size visualizations obviously are large size, but if you're looking at a small thing right here, then that's suddenly a small visualization size. Secondly, visualization scale. Now we're getting into the cartographic sense of scale. The size relation between the thing that is being visualized and its real world size. So, you know, at what scale are we presenting our data, if you will? So again, there's kind of three categories here. We would have the, I don't know which one I start from. Yeah, the same scale visualizations. We present something at its normal, at its expected size, let's say. The classic teapot at the classic teapot size. Or you could be presenting scaled down things like a map, but maybe a 3D map with relief and terrain, but you present it at a small size on a desktop. Or you could scale things up because suddenly you have a digital visualization and you could be interested in looking into the details and the inner workings of a very tiny thing. Imagine you were, you wanted to see how a Swiss clock worked. Obviously, it would be much easier if you could, you know, zoom in and have the cogs and everything and the mechanisms huge around you. So, you know, that would be scaling up. Third category is the acknowledgement of the physical environment with augmented reality, because we're projecting things kind of onto the real world. Very quickly, when testing augmented reality, you realize that it's not just that you want to walk around some virtual thing and look at it from different angles. You also want to somehow incorporate it into the physical world or incorporate the physical world into the visualization. So you usually want to somehow account for the physical world in the visualization. And there's, again, three ways to do that. You discard the physical world, you just project your virtual data over the real world view, and it gives a very, I don't know, uncomfortable view, that's disregarded. Or you can sort of preload the physical, you build a model of a physical world, you load it into your application, and you kind of hope that everything lines up and no one moves a chair, because that ruins everything, as is usually the case. Or you use some depth cameras, some onboard LiDAR stuff that sort of builds real-time meshes of the world around you, the environment around you, and you kind of use real-world occlusion. At the moment, these are the three kind of approaches. And finally, the final spatial characteristic of augmented reality applications is how we align the virtual view with the real world around us. There's 4 different ways that we have identified. If there's more to share, first, you just show some virtual data at some point in space, and that's it. There's no real relation. It just is, I don't know, the mirror ahead of the camera. There's the option to use a physical marker, like a predetermined image that when the camera recognizes it, places some virtual model there. The third one is to use the morphology of the space around you so that the camera can sort of identify morphological features of the real world and use those like a tabletop or a floor or any other. And fourth, we use sensors on the device, like the GPS sensors and the compass, to place things in the real world. There's definitely combinations of all the different methods, but these are sort of the four that everything can boil down to. And okay, so that work we published it last year at the International Symposium of Mixed and Augmented Reality. The link is there. I think we can also have a link, or it's on the slides as well. So, and another work we are doing, we're finishing up writing it, is looking into more in depth into a specific application of augmented reality, which is augmented reality in navigation, specifically navigation, pathfinding, wayfinding, lots of different terms for it. But again, we have a lot of different approaches, and all of them are using the same label, augmented reality navigation, and they're very different one another. So we figured, okay, it's time for a review of the field. So we did that. Very quickly, we searched for all papers that had the terms augmented reality and navigation or pathfinding or wayfinding from sort of 97-ish to the present, that were written in English and specifically discussed an augmented reality application that had to do with navigating physical worlds. So not medical navigation, which is very small, precise movements, not virtual environment navigation, which is how to move in, I don't know, HTC Vive space or Steam VR space, and not simulations. So we did not look into driving simulators, because that's a lot of work, but different kind of work. So we basically, just to boil it down, looked at 101 papers that specifically dealt with using augmented reality to navigate in real world space. And we have some metrics of that, which I found very interesting and I wanted to share today. Very briefly, looking at publications over time, the right top chart. It's basically been a consistent topic up until 2010 or so, when suddenly we get a spike and we get 6 to 10 papers per year on the topic of augmented reality navigation alone. And we sort of assume, but we feel it's a safe assumption that that's because smartphones happened. Because 2007, we got the first iPhone, and then people started experimenting, because suddenly you had a device that could support augmented reality and it was fairly cheap and ready to go. So instantly, well, after that, we have the spike, and we see it if we break it down by target device. The red line at the bottom chart is the mobile devices, and that looks like it coincides perfectly. So that's, we believe, what drives most of the interest, mainly because it's suddenly easier, and fields outside of, I don't know, computer science, HCI can now apply augmented reality. A couple of other things, looking at the whole trends under through different lens. We're also interested in how researchers develop their applications, because we are also in the application development world. So we're always interested to see what tools they're using. Pre-2010, we don't care. Everyone used their own custom solution. There's no grouping that unless we use the general term custom solution. But after 2010, we usually have the native tools, whatever tools, I don't know, Android offers you, Google offers you if you want to develop for Android, or whatever tools Apple offers if you want to develop for iOS. And that's was the main platform for a bit, and then we quickly we see a movement into sort of using third-party libraries that kind of make it even easier to develop. You have your Unity 3D and your Vuforia and your Meteo SDKs that kind of take a bit of the struggle out even further and make it even easier to develop. So we see that AR is becoming more of a side, of an additional tool that a researcher can use on their main focus. So rather than dealing with the hardware and the tech issues, they're more using AR to, I don't know, look up the cognitive processes in navigation rather than trying to figure out how AR works. And finally, I think this goes into too much detail at the moment and we can probably skip it. But we are seeing a lot of different approaches in the view alignment methods. So we get markers and we get the morphology and we get the sensors based, but we see all of them in equal use. There doesn't appear to be a single, best case. There's also different applications and different methodologies based on application. So outdoors, there's some methods are better, indoors, other methods are better. So there's a very interesting balance there. And then I have the conclusions, which I'll just leave there, but I'll just finish the presentation here, I think, because we are slightly behind schedule. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any quick questions from Kostas? All your findings will be also up.
And the slides as well, I think we can share the slides. Yeah.
Yes. I don't know if this comes out question or comment, but your work on scales in space, spatial scales, reminded me about the studies of those from change of the millennium or so from Montreal, for example.
Exactly. Exactly.
And it's an interesting combination of like both the representation itself being in some scale and in addition having another scale maybe through a map in virtual reality. So two scales multiplied in a sense.
Yeah.
And that's certainly an interesting research.
It is, and when we were, I think we basically referenced Montello's work directly in the paper because we were looking into it, and there was a lot of overlap, but not 100% overlap. I think we didn't need a couple of their definition, a couple of their categories. So potentially it's a subset. The one we're proposing here is probably a subset with maybe different naming because it fits better. But yeah, I could see a lot of matches between these two. Yeah, definitely.
Good. Anyone else? No. I guess you're getting tired slowly, so gradually. So thank you very much, Kostas.